Hi everyone, Miss Brogan here, and today I'm going to explain to you why Rad Academy has this little bottom part on every logo that says Learning for the 21st Century. So just to start off, 21st century learning is actually a thing. It's not something that I made up, so even though it's rad, it's not like I'm some creative genius who made these ideas up. A lot of the ideas of what we do at Rad Academy and our pedagogy actually comes from the Finnish education system. So to begin with, there are about 7 things that separate the way that we learn here at Rad Academy from traditional schools, although a lot of traditional schools and public schools are bringing these into their classes and doing work with this. So it's not like this isn't happening in the public school or anything like that. The first one is differentiation. We believe that because we have small class sizes and we're able to get to know our students better, we're also able to understand the different neurodiversities, the different ways that students learn in a better way because there aren't as many students. So having the small class sizes allows us to differentiate better so that we can give projects and tasks that are better suited for different skill levels and just the right amount of challenging. We are also very dedicated to equity, diversity, and inclusion. We just recently opened a nonprofit branch so that we can bring students from all walks of life into Rad Academy, and hopefully eventually our scholarship fund will take off and most students would be able to get a scholarship at some point. The number one most important thing that makes us a 21st century school is that we learn by doing. I highly believe in this. I think that most people learn by doing, although there are times when we can learn by listening or times where we can learn by watching tutorials. I think in the end, for long-term learning, learning by doing is the best way of doing that. So there are a couple ways that we do the learning by doing thing. There are challenges that I'll give your students. You may hear them say, we had a challenge today, or we did a 10-minute challenge, or we were given a set of materials and asked to make something out of these materials. For example, I may give your students, for our STEAM class, for example, I would give the students like 2 balloons, a paper clip, a water bottle, some pipe cleaners, just a bunch of random materials, and then I would ask them to construct something, for example, a boat, or some kind of creature that can be animated without using your hands, things like that. So that's kind of that problem-based, challenge-based learning that we really believe in. There's also the phenomenon-based concept of learning, which is really important to us here at Rad Academy. And phenomenon-based was actually created in Finland. And what it says is that if it's better to combine all of the subjects into one phenomenon as opposed to separating them into different subjects. So for example, in a traditional school, English would be a subject that students only focused on, or mathematics, or science, or etc. I mean, you get it, PE, right? With phenomenon-based learning, we think that in the real world, in the 21st century today, we use all of those skills and all of those subjects to do our jobs. And the whole point of 21st century learning is that there are new jobs and new things being created every day as a way to survive in the world, and traditional learning doesn't always help students completely with that. Also, the teacher's role. I don't consider myself the authority on anything that I do here. In fact, I learn a lot more from your students maybe than you know. One of the things I like to do is ask questions. So for example, I may say, I wonder what would happen if you inserted that pipe cleaner over there. Or what do you think the best material would be for floating and why? Do we know why this floats? Things like that. I won't say this floats because there are pockets of air. I'll ask, why do you think it's floating, right? And that's because it makes sense, and this is like cognitive constructivism is the fancy term for it. But really it just means that we learn by constructing ideas in our heads as opposed to having them inserted into our heads. So if a student can feel as if they've created this idea and they can experiment with it and see that it actually works or actually does not work, then they're more likely to get it. So, for example, a kid who touches the fire and burns their hand is going to learn that that fire is definitely hot and not to burn their hand, whereas there may be a bit of curiosity left over if you tell a kid not to touch the fire. So that's kind of the idea, right? I'm not telling you to have your kid touch the fire, right? We should obviously keep them safe, but it's just kind of a metaphor. The last 2 points are just as important as the others, community and technology. So community is a very big aspect of what I plan to do more of in the future at Rad Academy. We are still pretty new, but I would like to bring in some more speakers or people who are actually doing the things that we're talking about here at Rad Academy. So for example, we may have a guest speaker coming in who is part of the creation of the movie Dune. So I have some connections there with a real Hollywood director. So bringing them in, letting them speak, not even just for kids, but also for adults. Bring in some mixed classes so that kids actually feel connected to the community as opposed to being kind of separate from it. And then technology. I really try my best to bring in as much high-tech stuff as I can. I am a millennial, so, all of this is new for me. And I do know how to work some gadgets and gizmos pretty well. I'd say pretty darn well. But in the end, just buying something new and we're all experimenting with it and learning this new thing together is helpful not only for me, but also for the kids. So we're all learning together. And then the final note on 21st century learning is that you can always guarantee at Rad Academy that our instructors are going to be learning the newest and most advanced educational philosophies and theories. That is very important to me, that I'm always learning and doing the best I can to provide the best learning for your students. So that's kind of what the 21st century learning concept is that there's going to be new jobs, there's going to be new things going on. We are, very close to the heart of Silicon Valley, and I just think our kids deserve a fighting chance in a new economy. So that is my goal. Eventually, I would love to have a school. I would really love to have a school, and that's just maybe in the future. But for now, we're doing enrichment classes, we're doing summer camps, and I'm having a blast. And if your kids have been here already, it has been so fun, and we've done a bunch of wonderful things from building and designing robots with motors to filmmaking and using special effects and creating sets. We do a lot of recycling with the materials that we have, but eventually I'm going to be applying for grants so that we can get some pretty awesome technology coming in. So stay tuned because everything is working out really well, and I'm so excited for Rad Academy to be a part of our community.